Hi, my name is Marianne, and I'm here today. I want to share my story, take some minutes with you, share my story a little bit, and maybe my journey even, and the events that involved Michael Monteforte and Monteforte Law, and what they did for the last 5 years for my boyfriend and for me. My boyfriend and I first met Mike 5 years ago in his office in Wilmington, and we walked into his office like deer in the headlights. We just, he had just lost his brother. We didn't know what to do. There was no will. What do we do? I mean, what do you do? And at that time, I felt like I was the only one that felt that way, that, didn't know what to do when somebody passes and you got to do the estate. But I learned a lot since that time. And I can tell you that we sat and we shared our story with Mike, and he listened attentively. He took some notes. After we finished our story, he asked his clarifying questions. But nothing ever felt like we were on trial or being judged or that we had done anything wrong. The very first thing he said to us after introducing himself to us was, "I can help you." And that right then lifted like this whole big weight and this whole big cloud. And so he told us what the process would be like, what we needed to do, what he would be responsible for, timelines, expectations. If this happens, do this. He just guided us along the way because, again, we had no clue. And never at any time when I walked into a meeting with this cloud or this weight on me did I ever feel like I left with that cloud still there. We left full of hope and upbeat, and the cloud and the anxiety was gone. And that's just, in a time of grief, it's just so powerful. So we went along and we were making progress, and then just when we thought we probably were done with his brother's estate, the pandemic hit. And we all know what that did to all of us. The pandemic just, who wasn't scared? Who wasn't nervous about life? We didn't know it was coming. We didn't know how long it was going to last. Now, it's like, oh God, now we can't finish his estate. What's next? But at the same time, we were just about to start his mother's probate. She had died years before the brother. She had a will, but they hadn't probated it. And we were just about to start that process. So everything, as you all know, was shut down, locked down, didn't know how long it was going to last. Even the courts, I think, were all shut down except probably the most serious of the criminal cases that they had to see. I'm not even sure about that, but I'm assuming. But during that time of shutdown, when not much progress could be made, Mike always kept us in the loop, telling us if there was movement, what the changes would be, when we could expect the timelines, what we could still be working at in the meantime. So that was also very helpful because the unknown is sometimes more scary than the known. Towards the end of the pandemic, when we, everything, okay, the world is going to be right again, and we're going to return to normalcy, we got the news that my boyfriend was diagnosed with an illness that took him 3 months later. He wasn't prepared, certainly. I wasn't prepared, certainly. He had no will. He had no trust. He had no plans, nothing. He didn't have the proxy, the healthcare proxy. He didn't have any of that in place because we didn't anticipate it. But within that 3-month time, Mike took us on again. He got the will with us through Zoom meetings, through telephone calls, through text messages, whatever medium we wanted to do with. Mike said, we'll do it. And not just Mike, but his team. Because if Mike was, you like to think you're the only one in the room, but you're not the only client. He had other people he was tending to too. So if Mike wasn't available, one of his team members was. Whether it was one of the attorneys, one of the other attorneys, the paralegals, anybody who worked in that team within that 5 years that we met, just was always there ready to help us. They knew enough about our story that they could help us if Mike wasn't available. And who needs more than, you just need that in that time. It's just so emotional. So we got everything done in place. My boyfriend was happy with what was in place. He had his power of attorney. He had his proxy. He had his personal representative, me. So it took a lot of weight off of his shoulders. And he could just concentrate on spending his best time for what he had left. When the time came, again, there was another deer in the headlights. But Mike was right there with the team again to lead me through what I needed to do, tell me what to expect, because now I was a personal representative, whereas my boyfriend had been previously. But not was I only the personal representative for my boyfriend. I now was the personal representative for his brother's estate, which hadn't been terminated, and his mother's estate, so I was a 3-in-1. And that was a pretty big deer in the headlights at that point, and those lights were pretty bright. Again, I never heard anything like nothing like this is a problem. We need to do this. It was always, I got you. We'll help you. We'll get through this together. We're not going to let you down. We're not going to back up. We're not going to back away from anything. We've got you. And they did. They had me. They held me up, not just with legal matters, but the emotional piece, and sometimes with a shoulder to cry on more than once. So that's why I'm sharing my story with you today, because now I know I'm not the only one that's been in that position. My story is unique in some ways, as is everyone's, but it's more similar than to everybody else's, that you don't know when it's going to hit. And if you don't have things in place, it's very confusing. It's very scary. But when you have somebody like Mike and his team right there in your corner for you, giving you the legal advice, doing the legal procedures for you, so you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. What do I do? How do I do it? But having a clear path to the end of the journey. And so that's why I would never hesitate to recommend Mike and his firm and his team to any of my family or my friends that were looking for, if they have issues with elder care and have questions or concerns, or somebody who needs to think about their estate planning, get it going before it's like the 11th hour. And I'm saying all of this, and I, in fact, took my own advice. I don't always, but I took my own advice, and I worked with Mike and his team to create my will and my trust. I have my healthcare proxy in place. I prepared my personal representative for the day. I know who my power of attorney is going to be. That person knows that as well. So what I wanted to do is get everything in place for them or for him, so he would only have to worry about doing the process and not how to do the process and where do I look for this, where do I go for that. Right now it's in place. It's where it needs to be for that day. I'm not pushing for that day, but it's there when the time comes, because I want him to be prepared. I don't want him to have the doubts and the fright and the scary and the unknown, like what we went through, because you don't know when it's going to happen. It can just happen. It could happen. You don't know. And during all of that time, Mike and his team was available for questions. Yearly, we go over if there's any changes I want to make to that plan. I can make it. There's a check-in annually. I can't say enough about how they've helped me, and they've been there for me, and they were there for my boyfriend. I don't know what we would have done without them. Again, legally, emotionally, personally. Thanks, Mike, and thank your team for everything you've done for us.